Negative interest rates. We started discussing those in last week's episode. Enough theory. Europe and Japan have negative interest rates already. How's that going? Until recently, private banks in the European Union have accepted lower profits instead of passing along negative interest rates. That's beginning to change. Some private banks in Europe are starting to charge businesses that have larger deposits with negative interest rates. To date, they have not yet started charging small businesses and consumers. You may have even heard that in Denmark, some banks are granting mortgages with a slightly negative interest rate. But before you get too excited, you should know that these banks have increased their other fees on the borrower. The result is that after fees, the borrower still owes some money on top of the principal to the bank. So don't get your hopes up. So what can you do to cope if your bank starts charging you fees or negative interest rates on your deposits? One way to cope would be to take your money out of the bank and store it yourself. For example, you might keep your money in a safe at your home. There are risks to that, such as theft, but you might decide to accept that risk instead of the known fact that your money would be steadily declining due to fees if you keep it in the bank. The economists have been thinking about that likely behavior, though. They have an idea, unfortunately, to fight that. You may have heard of proposals to do away with cash. Well, that is one of those ideas. So you would not have the option to switch to cash to protect yourself. Even if cash isn't entirely eliminated, economists have another scary idea to punish you for using cash. You would have to periodically go to a bank and get your cash marked or stamped. You would have to pay a fee for that mark or stamp. If you did not comply, then your unmarked or unstamped cash would be void by law. For example, a store would not be able to accept it as payment. This is beginning to sound downright ominous. What else could you do to protect yourself? Well, you might decide to use your cash to purchase something that you think would hold its value. For example, real estate, stocks, collectibles such as art, stamps, antiques, etc., precious metals, and other items. You would be accepting some risk of decline in value with these alternatives as well. What more could you do? For the average person, negative interest rates would probably encourage you to stock up on things. You know you need to buy X amount of laundry detergent over the next year. Instead of buying it each month as you consume it, you might decide to purchase a 1-year supply right now. Why? If interest rates are negative by 5% per year, putting $1 in the bank now would leave you with only 95 cents in a year. So you might decide that you would be better off economically to buy in advance. Many economists are hoping you would do just that, as they think that would increase economic activity. However, that's the theory. It hasn't always played out like that in real life. In Japan, for example, the scenario has encouraged just the opposite behavior. Consumers have cut their spending and increased their saving as they became even more concerned about the future. If you are trying to save for a house, your retirement, your children's education, and other goals, you need to pay attention to the news about negative interest rates.